If you think El Chapo's life imprisonment is the only thing that could bring him to his knees, think again. He might have been the kingpin of the Sinaloa cartel and a notoriously brutal Mexican organized crime syndicate. But did you know that there are drug lords even El Chapo was afraid of? And if so, did you know what power they possessed over El Chapo? In this video, we'll be answering all these questions by discussing the 6 notorious drug lords El Chapo was scared of. Number 1. El Mencho. The abduction of El Chapo's son, Jesus Alfredo Guzman, back in August 2016 at a restaurant in Puerto Vallarta, was perceived as a setback for the senior Guzman, who, even while serving time in prison, had been attempting to secure the Sinaloa cartel's supremacy in the area. The news of the kidnapping of El Chapo Guzman's son sent shockwaves throughout the criminal underworld. The brazen attack, reportedly carried out by members of the New Jalisco Generation cartel, targeted not only the family of the notorious drug lord, but also signaled a violent challenge to his Sinaloa cartel. It's rumored that El Mencho initially planned to kidnap El Chapo's son to get sensitive information out of him and then kill him, but he was freed 1 week after the kidnapping. Thus began a bloodthirsty rivalry between the two drug lords. So, who's El Mencho, you ask? Well, one of the most wanted men by both Mexico and the United States is Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. The DEA states that this cartel has a presence in at least 24 of Mexico's 32 states, making it one of the largest and most powerful criminal organizations in the country.
Tonight, the DEA is offering $10 million for information leading to the arrest of the Mexican drug kingpin known as El Mencho.
If the $10 million reward for El Mencho doesn't convince you of the significance of his role in the criminal underworld, I don't know what will. The Jalisco New Generation cartel, known for its ruthless tactics, has been terrorizing Mexico through violence, corruption, and extortion. As the Drug Enforcement Administration closely tracks the rise of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, aka El Mencho, former DEA agent Phil Vigil has offered a unique insight into the brutal and cunning leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. Vigil warns, don't be fooled, El Mencho's deadlier than a rattlesnake and even deadlier than El Chapo. The CJNG's rise to power has been aided by the downfall of the Sinaloa cartel, following capture of El Chapo and his incarceration in a U.S. Supermax prison. As El Mencho invests heavily in paramilitary forces and weaponry, Vigil notes that the drug lord is far more intelligent and cunning than his predecessor. Make no mistake, El Mencho has since become someone who is deeply feared by El Chapo, because he's risen to take El Chapo's place and has amassed widespread success in the drug market. Number 2. El Mayo. I bet you didn't expect to see El Mayo on this list. But in the aftermath of El Chapo's extradition, the cartel faced a power struggle, as you might know. Nevertheless, it emerged stronger than ever, with Guzman's associate Ismael El Mayo Zambada and Guzman's own sons, known as Los Chapitos, now believed to be at the helm of the operation. Ismael El Mayo Zambada Garcia is considered by many to be the real leader of the Sinaloa cartel, one of the most powerful and notorious drug trafficking organizations in the world. And on the surface, he seems to be very close to El Chapo, but that's not the case. Although they were once allies in the notorious Sinaloa cartel, their relationship deteriorated over time due to 3 key differences. The first was Guzman's failure to groom El Mayo as his successor, instead of favoring his rival, Lopez Nunez, as the leader. The second was Guzman's flamboyant public appearances, in stark contrast to El Mayo's preference for anonymity. The final straw was Guzman's foray into show business, a move that El Mayo saw as a dangerous distraction from the business of narco trafficking, because, as you might have already guessed, El Mayo prefers to stay in the shadows. As the founding fathers aged and fell, El Mayo urged Guzman to hand over control to a new generation of capable lieutenants, warning that failure to do so would mean risking everything at their own peril. There's a rumor, probably true, that El Mayo was with Guzman during his capture in Los Mochis. but managed to evade capture himself. They both escaped from the initial raid by disappearing into a sewer. Later, they allegedly hijacked a red Ford Focus from a woman and her child while covered in dirt. It is said that El Mayo returned the woman's purse before they parted ways, and while El Chapo was arrested, El Mayo was not. The whole thing seemed very staged. With Guzman now in prison for life, El Mayo, who was once his adjutant, is now expected to turn against him, showcasing the precarious nature of the criminal underworld. Number 3. The BELTRAN-LEYVA brothers. The BELTRAN-LEYVA organization was a Mexican drug trafficking organization formed in the 1980s, which now we already know is one of the largest and most powerful criminal groups in the hemisphere. The BLO was founded by 4 brothers, Alfredo, Arturo, Carlos, and Hector BELTRAN-LEYVA, who had grown up poor in the countryside near El Chapo. The brothers and Guzman had a long-standing relationship dating back to the 1980s, when they broke into the drug business as small-time poppy producers and later as hitmen and distributors for larger organizations such as the Guadalajara cartel. The BELTRAN-LEYVAs were instrumental in helping Guzman escape from jail in 2001, and later played a key role in the formation of the Federation, a coalition of 25 of the largest drug trafficking factions in 2002. However, tensions between the brothers and Guzman reached a boiling point after the army arrested Alfredo in 2008. Rumors circulated that El Chapo had handed over Alfredo to the security forces to get rid of a problem and regain the freedom of his son. This led to a split between the BLO and the Sinaloa cartel, with Arturo taking it upon himself to avenge his brother. The split between the two organizations led to a surge in violence in Mexico, including the killing of 2 top police officials in Mexico City, which shocked the country's elite. The BLO has since seen its leadership decimated since 2009, while Guzman was able to maintain the Sinaloa cartel status as the most wide-reaching criminal group in the hemisphere. But now that El Chapo's in prison, the BLO now have a strategic position in the drug market, and El Chapo fears he may have used up all his reserves of power. Number 4. Carrillo Fuentes. The ruthless drug war in northern Mexico took a deadly turn with the assassination of Julio Cesar El Cesarin Carrillo, son of infamous drug kingpin Amado Carrillo Fuentes. The 35-year-old, believed to be a leader in the New Juarez cartel and linked to the enforcer gang La Línea, was murdered inside his Sinaloa home. Carrillo's father, El Señor de los Cielos, was one of Mexico's most notorious drug lords, known for his massive fleet of aircraft that transported drugs from Central and South America to Mexico and across the border to the United States. However, the Lord of the Skies met a fateful end after undergoing plastic surgery to alter appearance and evade capture. Following the elder Carrillo's death, the Juarez cartel, located across from El Paso, Texas, became embroiled in a brutal turf war with the rival Sinaloa cartel. The conflict has only intensified since the extradition of Sinaloa kingpin El Chapo and the takeover of the cartel by his sons, Ivan Archibaldo, Jesus Alfredo, and Ovidio Guzman. Crime experts speculate that El Chapo's children, known as Los Chapitos, are behind Carrillo's murder as the Sinaloa cartel continues its reign of terror over the state. With the new Juarez cartel weakened by the split of its armed enforcement wing, La Línea, the drug war in northern Mexico shows no signs of slowing down. This lands Fuentes on top of the list of drug lords El Chapo fears, because he knows that debt has to be paid. Number 5. The Arellano Felix brothers. The Arellano Felix brothers were a notorious drug cartel based in Tijuana, Mexico. They were known for their brutal tactics, including kidnapping, murder, and corruption. The cartel was one of the largest drug trafficking organizations in the world, responsible for smuggling vast quantities of cocaine, marijuana, and methamphetamines into the United States. Despite several attempts to capture and prosecute them, the Arellano Felix brothers remained active, until several of the brothers were eventually arrested and imprisoned, with the last one being captured in 2002. The testimony of a former Sinaloa cartel accountant shed new light on the gruesome world of Mexican drug trafficking. He revealed that El Chapo once bragged about the greatest pleasure he'd ever experienced: the murder of his longtime enemy and Tijuana cartel leader, Ramon Arellano Felix. According to Zambada, El Chapo had been trying to kill Arellano through his business partner and older brother El Mayo since 1992. In 2002, Arellano was finally assassinated in Mazatlan, Mexico, and Guzman allegedly said that the death had given him pleasure, as Arellano had killed many of his friends and was considered very dangerous. El Chapo, who's in prison for life, was once a rival of the Tijuana cartel, and the two organizations had waged a bloody war throughout the 1990s. El Chapo knows that the Felix brothers are still out to get him, and this terrifies him, because if they're unable to reach him, who else would be the next target? And number 6, the Flores twins. The identical twin brothers, Pete and Jay Flores, built a large drug trafficking empire and made international news as the reason for El Chapo's imprisonment. The story begins in a little village, Chicago, where they learned the family trade from a young age. After being caught in a pickle, Jay had to find a way to negotiate his brother's release by convincing El Chapo that he was being misled by one of his close business associates. Jay's meeting with El Chapo sparked a new business relationship, and the twins found themselves at the table with the world's biggest drug lords. El Chapo, El Mayo, and Arturo Beltran welcomed the Flores brothers into the cartel family with open arms. But the Flores family once again found itself in an impossible situation. With the prospect of life in prison or a life taken away by other means hanging over their heads, Jay decided to save his family by ramping up cooperation with the U.S. government. They recorded incriminating calls and got El Chapo on tape. After 9 months of recording calls and feeding information to the DEA, Jay and Pete were taken into witness protection in the United States. This created a tide of bad blood with El Chapo, who was left in fear of the gravity of the substance he was going to be incriminated for. As we bring El Chapo's tale to a close, we're left with a haunting reminder of the brutal reality of the drug world, where rivalries are often settled with bloodshed and corruption runs rampant.